Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors to order. At this time, we'll have a roll call.
Director Minor?
Here.
Director Peavy?
Here.
Assistant Mayor Teeters is absent. Director Harris?
Here.
Director Hollibush?
Here.
Director Odom?
Here.
Mayor Brown?
Here. So at this time, we'll have our invocation and the pledge, if you'll stand, by Director Barbara Minor.
Lord, it's with honesty and gratitude to you for this day. Lord, there have been so many blessings afforded us in each of our lives that they're innumerable. And I thank you for each and every one. I thank you for the people who work within our city. I thank you, Lord, for the police and the fire, particularly those two entities. And Lord, my further prayer would be for the families represented of those men and women in that group. Just be with us as we are aboard together, endeavoring to do your business that you appoint us for within this city. Lead, guide, and direct us in everything that we do. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. At this time, just as a quick reminder, if you have your cell phone with you, if you would please silence your cell phones. If you wish to address the board tonight at Citizens Communication Time, there are cards on the ledge there. If you would fill that out and get that to our city clerk, it would be beneficial for us. You're not required to do it, but if you would fill out a Citizens Communication card, it would be good for us to have for our records. At this time, we'll move into the consent agenda, which there's two items on the consent agenda tonight. The first is item number 1, which is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting November the 4th. And item number 2 is to adopt a resolution appointing Personnel Administrator Melissa Edwards and Assistant Public Works Director Tracy Lee to the Public Facilities Board. Is there any discussion amongst the board members? If not, is there a motion to approve of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. So tonight on our agenda, we have one regular item on the agenda tonight. Is to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2020 budget. Finance Director Taronda Henderson.
Can everyone see that presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor Brown, Board of Directors, and City Manager Dr. Haskin. I would like to present to you the final version of the fiscal year-end 2020 budget. The fiscal year-end 2020 budget contains additional documentation necessary for the city to receive the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. This information converts the budget from a fund-level document to a citywide inclusive document. This slide shows the citywide revenues and expenditures for fiscal year-end 2020. With the General Fund, Public Works Fund, CDBG, TWU, and other funds, and A&P, the city has an overall budget of $44.4 million. The citywide major sources of revenue are Texarkana Water Utilities at 23%, sales tax at 23%, and all other revenues, each of which is less than $1 million, at 21%. The citywide major expenditures are personnel at 38%, Texarkana Water Utilities at 26%, and contractual services at 11%. The general fund is the primary operating fund of the city. The primary revenue sources are property taxes, sales taxes, franchise fees, grants, and other general revenues. These funds are typically discretionary and have very few restrictions. This fund provides the general operations of the city through administration, finance, city clerk, board of directors, court, probation, police, fire agencies, animal shelter, and the federal JAG grant. The fiscal year end 2019 budget highlights are as follows. Expenditure growth expected to exceed revenue growth. Revenue growth has a 0% increase over the previous year, and expenditure growth is 13.27%. Expenditures expected to exceed revenues by $827,000. This is due to the budget being approved with a $558,000 appropriated fund balance and an emergency expenditure of $250,000 for the Regency building. Expenditures expected to be over budget by $1.1 million. This is due to the mid-year appropriation of $875,000 for the new animal shelter and emergency expenditures of $250,000 for the Regency building. The estimated fund balance at year end is $4.8 million. The general fund has three major sources of revenue. There are general property taxes, sales and other taxes, and franchise receipts. General property taxes account for 13% of the proposed revenue for fiscal year end 2020. A 2% increase has been proposed over last year. Sales and other taxes account for 53% of the proposed revenue for fiscal year end 2020. A 2% increase has been budgeted over last year. It is important that we remember that 1% of the city's 2.5% tax goes directly to the state as part of the Board of City exemption. Franchise receipts account for 13% of the fiscal year end 2020 proposed revenue. No increase was budgeted for franchise receipts as this revenue source has been very volatile over the last 10 years. As recommended by GFOA and approved in the city's fiscal policy, there should not be less than 60 days of expenditures in unreserved fund balance. Anything less than 60 days starts to cause a cash flow issue. $4.8 million is the estimated fund balance at the end of 2019, and $4.2 million is the proposed for fiscal year end 2020. This is equivalent to 73 days of expenditures. The general fund budget highlights for fiscal year 2020 include all departments cut expenditures by $525,000. A 0.5% COLA proposed for fire and police civil service personnel. The city assumed an increase in the insurance premium due to change in classification. The by-state contribution decreased by $1 million. This is due to the cumulative overage of $1.4 million as of year-end 2018. An additional $290,000 is budgeted for the by-state reserve. For the first time in several years, the general fund's proposed budget includes a significant amount of capital outlay. These capital purchases include $15,000 for a new camera in the boardroom, $50,000 for 10 complete camera systems for police, $150,000 for 5 new patrol cars, $30,000 for staff vehicles for fire, $100,000 for a brush truck, $286,000 for streets and drainage, $229,000 for economic development. The Public Works Fund budget highlights for fiscal year 2020 include the 2020 proposed ending fund balance is $150,000. Other street projects include drainage improvements, Joy Lane washout, Sanderson Lane road improvements, Cherry Street road improvements, Highway 71 bridge lights, and East 50th Street improvements. Are there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Henderson?
Thank you.
Yes.
I was trying to wait to see if there's anybody else had a question. I had asked for a copy of what are the benefits for employees, and I'm gonna be the first to say I didn't request this for to take anything away from an employee. I'm just trying to bring awareness of certain things that has occurred, that is occurring, and I'm gonna make it perfectly clear. I'm not, my comment is not trying to take any benefits from an employee. But my first question is, I noticed that on here, it had about communication. What part of this communication had to do with cell phones and not cell phones?
On our communications budget, there are certain budget and certain departments and employees that do receive a cell phone benefit.
And how much is that?
I would have to break that down for go through each department and tell you how much that amount is, but I can do that for you.
I think it's over in the thousand, all over for the city or what?
Off the top of my head, I can't give you that specific number, but I can look that up and get that information to you.
And the reason why I'm bringing that issue up, at one time, that most of all the board members had a cell phone. No, I'm not trying to advocate that we get the cell phone or not get a cell phone. And I was the last one to have a cell phone of the board members from back at the day. Then one day, and for one day it was just all of a sudden it got cut off, and I didn't get no reason why it was cut off. And I was trying to bring that up at a board meeting, and then the board objectively joined the meeting because I was making comments about the city manager. I was stating that once I told him that I didn't want to see no phone calls and all that from him on the weekend, talking about other employees and such of that nature, my cell phone was cut off that following Monday. But like I say, I'm not trying to advocate to bring the cell phone issues or for me to get a cell phone back. I just want to know what is the amount we were paying the cell phone, and that little $50 I was getting per se a month. Then I don't think it had something to do with a whole lot. Then my other issue is, how much are we paying a month for the television for them to record and pay this?
In your budget, there is a line set aside specifically for that. And I apologize, Director Harris, I'm looking it up because I don't want to give you the wrong amount. I have several numbers all in my head tonight. That amount, I do believe, is $5,000 annually.
Okay, and the reason why I bring that up is that we talk about open and transparent government, and is it per se open and transparent? Because based on we paying $5,000 for to have this video in public, then a certain segment of this is not being shown, and that's sales communication time. Now, who has the authority to withdraw or not have sales communication time not shown? That's a big question that probably need to be figured out and asked, because I do think that sales communication is just as much as part as what's being said now as the end, because you're taking part of the citizen comment from the public. Now, whether you agree or not agree as to what the citizen saying, that could be debated. But I think that the citizen has a right to be heard, and I don't think that no one person per se could make that determination as to who determined and how they got started back. From my understanding, it got started back because when I made comments at a board meeting back in November, maybe 2 years ago or a year ago, and that's probably why sales communication is not being shown. And then my last issue is, I don't know if you know, and I'm not trying to take this away from none of the employees, but I just noticed that there's $25,000 in giving in car allowance for certain department heads. Now, you can look at that maybe one or two different ways, and I don't want to get up here and start saying who I think deserve it, who I don't think deserve it. But I just noticed that every time when the last mayor came up, there was a budget put out for the board member as to cause by law we is only entitled to per diem per se. Now there is a state law that strictly governs the mayor, that the mayor should be paid his expenses regardless as to per se, there's no limit on the mayor expenses. Now, that's how I interpret the law, and I know maybe the mayor probably not aware of that, but I'm saying I can see how if the mayor probably need to go somewhere or do something, and then is his budget is just the same as our budget, it's like $1,200 a year, and that's only for travel if you go somewhere. But every time when somebody else come up here, they want money, they always compare them to Texas side. And I know Texas side, they getting like $350 a month plus travel. Then the county, they getting $450 a month plus insurance. But and I just know every time that, and I know I was singled out maybe a while back with the travel thing, and that's probably why it's done now, the $1,200. But like I said, I'm not here trying to take away from no employees, but I just noticed how on one spectacle, everybody is getting this and getting that. Then if you bring that up, you're doing something wrong or you're saying something wrong about it. But like I said, I'm not trying to take nothing away from the employees' benefit. I'm just trying to let the public aware that I don't see any fairness in this process that's been going on, because when the budget come forward, and I'm gonna bring this last issue up and I'm gonna move on, that I just noticed one day that was the city doing the workshop, that the city manager just decided he was gonna get an employee a $5,000 raise on the spot, and they said that if we get him the raise, he was gonna remove this employee travel or car allowance. But when I did the FOI request, she did get the $5,000 raise, but the travel allowance was still there. But like I say, I'm not trying to take nothing away from that employee, and I think every employee feel that they probably deserve more, and I'm not questioning the worthiness of an employee. I'm just trying to bring some fairness through this process, and that's all I got to say.
I appreciate your comments. I mean, I'll only make two comments to that. One being that, I'm aware of what the mayor is entitled to and could do. I do not accept those and have not accepted those, and I'm aware of those. And I have been paid to attend one municipal conference, and that is it. I don't receive any type of compensation reimbursement from the city as mayor. The second is that I'm aware that most entities, municipalities, and other businesses do have those types of perks, you would call them, when they do have them, and we have policies and procedures that back those perks as to where and how, when, what, and where. We call it the IRS rules on what you can do with those entities, and it's up to the city manager, it's up to the city staff to make sure that we comply with those issues when they get them. Whether it's excessive or not, it's up for us as a board to decide when we get in the budget process as to how those expenses are allocated. Any other comments?
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, if there's no additional comments, prior to voting, we'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Whereas the fiscal year of the city of Texarkana, Arkansas is January 1 to December 31, and whereas the law of the state of Arkansas requires adoption of an annual budget, and whereas the FY 2020 proposed budget has been reviewed by the Board of Directors in a workshop session which was open to the public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas that Section 1, the FY 2020 budget attached hereto and made a part hereof, along with amendments of the FY 2019 budget to reflect year-end adjustments for the 2019 audit, is hereby adopted. Said budget shall be kept on file with in the office of the city clerk. Section 2, the respective amounts of money allocated to each of the funds in the FY 2020 budget, including FY 2019 budget revised amounts, are hereby allowed and appropriated. Section 3, unless otherwise specifically required by separate ordinance or applicable law, the city manager is authorized to select and hire individuals to fill all budgeted positions now or hereafter coming vacant contained in the FY 2020 budget, passed and approved this 18th day of November 2019.
City attorney's read the resolution. Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution?
Motion to adopt?
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Prior to the board voting to adopt the resolution, does anyone in the audience wish to speak pertaining to the budget? Okay, seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Harris,
No.
Hollowbush,
Yes.
Odom, Director Odom,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes. So the budget resolution passes. Okay, moving on, we'll get into our citizens' communication time. Is there anyone that wishes